too, because I know we about to.
Right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Keeping It 100 with your outreach team from Rain. Today is going to be a great episode. I'm really excited to talk about some things that have been going on in today's news that we may not have heard about, and get some input from people in that community on things that can be done better, and what they would like to see happen. As always, I'm Patrice, and I am the prevention case manager at RAIN, and I assist people into getting on to PrEP and offer case management services for those individuals. I also do community conversations about sex ed, healthy sexual behavior. I also give out condoms and Plan B in the community for anybody that would like it. Now, there are a few things going on at RAIN that I want to mention really quickly. We have just wrapped up the AIDS walk, and we were only $1,200 from our actual goal from our regular walk. So for a virtual walk, that was absolutely amazing. We want to thank everybody for your donations and for your continued support. That really means a lot over here. You can also start to pick up your T-shirts for the AIDS walk if you have not got them yet at the RAIN office. They will start being on the 19th. You can check our website or our webpage on Facebook for any information about that. And I'm going to give it over to my coworker.
Hey everybody, my name is Bryce. I'm a parenting specialist at RAIN. So I specialize in finding those who are positive, who've been out of care for 6 months or more, and I help them get re-engaged in care. Also, if you're newly diagnosed, I get you into care within 2 to 3 weeks of your diagnosis. I case manage you for a year. I help you learn how to navigate your healthcare. And while helping you learn to navigate your healthcare, I also assist you with any crises you're having, which will be with housing, food, transportation. I help find resources, and I provide all those things for you. I also do rapid HIV and Hep C testing. So if you or someone you know has been out of care for 6 months or longer, please contact me.
All righty, and next.
It's your boy Sean. Y'all already know I am the peer outreach specialist here with RAIN and with Crew. I specialize in harm reduction as it relates to substance abuse or substance use. So if you know anyone that's dealing with those matters, anyone dealing with substance abuse or substance use or having addiction, please send them my way. I'm also out in the community educating and advocating about healthy, safe sex practices. And also, I always tell y'all every time, if y'all need condoms and lube, I have it for free. So make sure you hit me up.
Oh, all righty. Now, everybody, today's topic is going to be the Black trans experience, and as it relates to the Black Lives Matter movement. The Black LGBTQIA+ community has always had a very tenuous relationship with the so-called straight Black community. The Black trans community, on the other hand, experiences unfettered hate and resentment from our community. Now, in the midst of the largest Black Lives Matter protest that we have ever seen, the uptick in murders of Black trans individuals in the U.S. is at an all-time high. But there has been no protest. There have been no calls to action that have been made, even though a Black trans man, Tony McDade, was killed 4 days after Mr. Floyd. His name has not been mentioned one time. A few days ago, during a protest for Mr. Floyd, a young trans woman was attacked during a protest that talked about nonviolence and overuse of violence by police. Tonight, we will hear from members of the trans community to listen to their hopes, their fears, and their well-deserved outrage. I would to introduce Charlize Marsh. She is a self-employed makeup artist and beauty entrepreneur. Charlize is a native of Charlotte and is currently residing in Atlanta. While living in Charlotte, she established herself in the community as an entertainer, a civic liaison, and maternal figure. She said she's always also looking for some good deeds. Hey, girl.
And nobody told you to tell my business.
Oh, that's what you put on your intro, girl. I don't know what to tell you.
No, good evening to everybody. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on. And it looks like our other guest is in. Hello, Keisha. Maybe not. Okay. She's having a few technical difficulties, and we are waiting for, we will probably have a couple of other guests later on. But Charlize, let's start with you and how you feel about the topic today.
Well, I think it's one of those things that's very, very layered. I think that as a trans person, and as a Black person, then there's always the thing of wanting to be supportive and wanting to feel supported. You want to support the community because, as we've heard so many
part of the
times,
community.
Right, and a lot of times we are recognized as being Black first.
Right.
So, in that, we definitely identify with that piece of struggle, and most of our families are also part of that struggle. And then there's a separate thing of being a trans person that's usually not supported and also attacked by people within our community. It's disheartening because I don't think that it's selective to trans people. I think that it's all LGBT people of color that kind of feels excluded from the movement and don't feel protected by the movement. And I understand that the movement is not inclusive of the matter of intercommunity crime. I understand that. I just think that in times where we want people to acknowledge the lives of people of color, that within our own community we don't have the same respect for life.
I can completely agree with that. I mean, there are a lot of issues with your basic, everybody likes to tout Black on Black crime when they start talking about police brutality. And when it comes to that, we do have some issues. But I don't think that they are coexistive. You know what I mean? I don't think that simply because you find crime or rowdy behavior in one race by any means makes it okay or is a correlation to police brutality and violence that is based upon race. I think that this particular issue is more upsetting to me simply because you're supposed to be marching for equality and justice. And you can't have that without everybody being on the same page and everybody having equality and justice. That makes absolutely no comment. I don't even get how that dawned in their mind that was the shit to do. And I think that's what really irritates me the most. Bryce?
Honestly, see a disconnect in terms when we're actually protesting for Black Lives Matter is only in terms of when a Black person gets killed by the police, but specifically when a Black straight male gets killed by the police. Like you said, we had a trans man that was killed 4 days after George Floyd by the hands of police, and no one talked about it. But also,
right.
It's about we had a cisgender woman, Breonna Taylor, who was murdered by police in her own home. So when we try to make these protests, seems like Black women and Black LGBT always come forward for Black straight men when they're being brutalized, but the same straight Black men are not coming forward for Black women or Black LGBT. So it's also it's like as being Black, we're already like second class citizens, but then where like even more second-class citizens in our community, just being Black LGBT, or the things that Black women are experiencing, and when you call them out on it, it gets misconstrued because it's like you're making a situation about you, but it's like no shit, because at the end of the day, I'm still Black.
Mm-hmm.
So it
Right.
is about me, and it is about my life and my representation, and also it's also making the community, the Black community, address the transphobia, the homophobia, and the misogyny that goes within the community.
I think that's very true.
I know for me, when it comes to this topic, I think I take it. I'm not trans myself, but I do take it a bit serious.
Sean, we can't hear you.
Hold on 1 second, y'all.
Are you muted?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, but I don't think they can.
You want me to leave out and come back in?
Yeah, pop out real quick.
Okay.
So it looks as if Keisha's connection is being a little shaky. She's trying to do something with that now. But I think I would like to talk a little about how, Bryce, what you said with the women as well as LGBTQ community and trans community. When you really sit down and think about it, that is correct. And I don't know, the optimistic side of me wants to say they're just the figurehead for the bigger, movement, but you really can't say that. You know what I'm saying? Not and be 100% honest, especially when it comes to LGBTQ people.
I think that what has happened is that Black people have decided to assign that the Black Lives Matter movement is supposed to be all encompassing, and it's not. It was built to address a very specific agenda, and that is unpunished police brutality on Black people.
Right. You guys hold on 1 second, because they're saying they can't hear any of us right now. Give me 1 moment. I'm gonna pop everybody out and everybody back in.
Okay.
Sorry, you guys. We had some technical difficulties. We are back now. If you guys still can't hear us, let me know in the comments. Okay, Malachi said he could hear us. So, all right. So I'm sorry. Can you repeat your last comment, because I think that was something that that was a good point.
I was saying that I think what has been misconstrued is that as a community, we think that the Black Lives Matter movement is supposed to be an inclusive movement of all Black concerns, and it's not. It's a specific agenda that is meant to address the police brutality that has gone unpunished on the lives of Black people. That's it.
Right.
I think that, one, we have to acknowledge that that's what it is, and that's what the organization is meant to do. And then we have to, as separate entities, mobilize our own platforms for the causes that we deem worthy of acknowledgement. So as a trans person, then it's basically my responsibility to go within my community of trans folk and say, hey, look, we need to mobilize and make a movement or an organization that's going to speak on the behalf of violence against trans people of color, or trans people, period. As Black women, you may need to mobilize and make an organization that focuses on, violence against women of color, because, to be completely honest, in my opinion, that's really the most underreported.
Right. Especially when it comes to domestic violence. That is, domestic violence and rapes are the most underreported things. And in the Black community, it's especially so.
Well, there's domestic violence, there's rape, there's the amount of missing Black women and young girls. The
Okay.
sex trafficking ring, like the whole thing, and it's really kind of it's really disappointing to
It's
to find
frightening.
out some of these numbers and to realize that no one is talking about them.
Right. Right. And it's not something for every person that you see that is on TV talking about being missed, there are probably a couple hundred minority women that are missed. And I think you are right. That is frightening. That is just something that hasn't been by anyone. I think that you are right. But I also feel like if it's just, even if you just look at it as a point of Black Lives Matter being about police brutality against Black people, Tony McDade was still a Black person. He was still a trans man, and I don't hear his name anywhere outside of the LGBTQ community. And I haven't.
I've seen it. There's a thread that goes to my inbox. I can't remember, but it's a community like mobilizing thread, and they actually did mention his name in relation to the Black Lives Matter movement. But I'm wondering if they've not mentioned him because of the scandal behind him being pursued, because he had actually murdered someone, which is the reason why he was being apprehended. Not that excuses what happened to him, but I think that the scandal behind it probably, and that's my assumption, the scandal behind it kind of kept them from wanting to acknowledge it.
Okay. And people watching, we want to hear you in the comments. Please feel free. Hop on, comment, talk about it.
Can everybody hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. You still can't hear him?
No.
Shame.
I can see him moving his mouth. That's why I'm shaking my head.
Oh my
God.
What is going on?
Every once in a while we have this problem where somebody can't be heard.
Okay.
Let me try it one more time. Hold on. Let me see here. This is so funny.
I'm blaming it on my juice. Just kidding.
Okay. But Rashawn, before we try to pop you back on, because I think everybody else can hear you, we want to talk about your thoughts on the topic, because I know this is something that's near and dear to your heart.
Yes.
Especially right now.
Okay. So for me, like I was saying before, this situation is near and dear to me. Just knowing that I do have people that are transgender that are around me, whether it be a trans man, trans woman, whatever the case may be, knowing that they are Black, and that if something was to happen to them, even in my case, like when it comes to my mother, and that's why I'm wearing her pin on my chest today, even with her murder now, she was a Black trans woman. I don't hear anybody or anyone discussing finding the guy that did it, or no information has been brought forth about this whole situation. It seemed like it was just like, okay, she got murdered. That's it. We're just gonna move on to the next person. It's like you keep hearing about trans women passing away and trans women dying, or trans men passing away, or trans men dying, and they're of color. And it's like, where does the sympathy lie in with the LGBTQ community when it comes to matters like this? And because it seems like, for me, I don't know, I'm not even being funny when I say this, but when it comes to the heterosexuals or cisgender, I don't see a lot of movement in that area when it comes to a gay person or a trans person dying, or when it comes to that type of situation with them. And when we try to be vocal about it, it's we're nitpicking. We're trying to find a reason to fight and find a way to fight about something or have an argument about something, when it's not really that. It's just, we want to be heard too. We want to be acknowledged. We want to know that at the end of the day, we were cared for, by our people. our own people. It's not by the world, just by our own community and our own people. But then again, you have people that's, just like you said earlier, the whole black against black crime thing, and people want to start bringing that up. I understand that's been going on for the longest.
Mm-hmm.
That's just be realistic about it. It's been going on for the longest. That's not what we're focused on, though. It was just like the little clip I seen of the girl that was explaining. She was saying, it was a little joke on TikTok. She was saying, "My house is on fire." And her neighbor came outside and said, "What?" Well, she was like, "I'm about to call the fire department." She was like, "What for?" She was like, "My house is on fire." She was like, "But what about my house?" She was like, "Well, your house is not on fire." She was like, "But my house matters too." And she was like, "But your house is not on fire. So why am I calling the police or calling the fire department for your house if your house is not on fire?" The same reason when it comes to Black Lives Matter. Why do we have to keep dissecting it and trying to make it more than what it is sometimes, when people really realize that in the Black community, LGBT, gay, straight, it don't matter. I like to tie us all into one, but I see that it doesn't blend well for some reason. And I notice it from a lot of cisgender men.
Mm-hmm. So my question is, do you think that we should fight for intersectionality within the Black Lives Matter movement? Or do you think that we should branch off and create our own movements that's specific to the causes that we care about? Because at first, I was more about fighting for intersectionality within the Black Lives movement, with not just making it about police brutality, but making it about violence against Blacks in general, and also making another intersection section about representing LGBT in the Black community. But then also, now I'm kind of on the fence, like maybe we shouldn't fight for intersectionality within the Black Lives Matter movement. Maybe we should create our own movements about issues that are specific to us that we specifically care about. So I want to know, what do you guys feel like we should do?
I think Charlize touched on that before when she said that with them being specific things, each one needs its own grassroots movement. I have, just in doing some research today, I've seen a couple of different groups that are smaller organizations that are dedicated to trans rights, trans justice. Towards the end of today's broadcast, I'm going to be putting some of that information up. So for any trans people that are interested, there are some resources that are out there that you can use. But you're right. I mean, just like with what's going on now, there has to be a plan. Without a plan, it's just a lot of outrage and a lot of emotions. You know what you want to do, but how do we get there is the biggest thing. Mm-hmm. I think that until you find the acceptance in the Black community for the LGBTQ community, it's going to be really difficult for them to be the support that community needs.
Let me twist it, because I feel like even sometimes I've heard this working closely with trans women, that even in the LGBTQ community, they separate trans from everything else. So it's like they don't have the same movement for, if I'm making sense. I know it sounds weird, but it's almost like,
I know what you're saying. Yeah.
It is weird, because I feel like we're all supposed to be working together and kind of like blending together. But it seems as though, like, even within our own community, we still have people that are gay, or that, maybe bisexual, whatever, that still
trans
have a problem with trans women or trans men, or anyone trans. So I think it starts within the community itself, for one, too. Not only just wanting everyone to accept us, or getting the world to understand that we matter as well. It's getting our own community to understand that we all are one. We're all fighting for the same thing, baby.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I think once we get that accomplished and get that understood, most of the times we'll be able to start making more of a movement. But until then, we continue fighting against each other, and nitpicking, and having these little small issues with each other, and killing each other, and not, uplifting one another. The same thing will keep happening within the community. And we're gonna keep, just like we're fighting against each other, but within fighting each other, we're still trying to fight a big fight.
But that's a different conversation for what a healthy Black society in America looks like. So I think that's a different conversation than hate crime. Mm-hmm. That's a different conversation than murder that is there are the numbers say that the percentage of people that are LGBTQ versus how many people, the percentage of trans in the LGBTQ population that has been identified is 0.06. That number is way too small for 26 people to have been murdered in the last year. That doesn't make any sense to me. And I think that's something that's far outpassing. Those are things that need to be pushed to the front. Just like the Black women and girls and other brown girls that have disappeared. These are things that are real serious life-threatening issues and human rights issues that aren't being addressed.
And there's no media coverage about them. The only time I hear about those type of things is either on Twitter or Facebook.
Or when it's on like some gossip or something like that. It's not really nothing about, trying to be helpful in that type of area or. So.
Yeah. And I think that, that's because the media is more controlled by the powers that be, and they're going to control your narrative. So we have a lot of comments, you guys. If y'all want to read some of the comments in the stream, I'll take some of the comments in my live stream. But Rashawn Jen had a question she wanted to know, why do you think that LGBTQ people hold a stigma against trans people? Whoever wants to chime in on that, please. Come on in, Charlize. Come on in.
I think that, so that issue in and of itself is another one of those that's really multi-layered. And I think it starts with the fact that trans is not a sexual orientation. Okay.
Gender identity.
And I think the fact that you grouped a gender identification into sexual orientation has confused the folk under that umbrella in and of itself. Because my identity doesn't necessarily belong to people who identify as gay. As a trans person, I'm looked at very much the same way by gay people as I'm looked at by straight people. As somebody who looks like someone who looks like a woman but was born male, then there's that there's this thing of, well, you're not who you really are, kind of thing. And so in terms of sexual attraction, I don't look like a man. So gay men, for the most part, aren't attracted to someone who looks like a woman. However, then there's that other thing, where if someone who identifies as straight is attracted to me and a gay man is attracted to that, then the first thing that they want to say, well, that's a man too.
I hate that. Oh.
And so there's this whole thing inside of that. So I think that's one of the first things that we have to kind of have to unpack around it, is that gender identity and sexual orientation don't need to be in the same sandbox. Because they don't.
And I think that's a great point. I think that's a fantastic point, and I really had never looked at it that way. But that when you say it, it makes so much sense.
It did.
And that yeah. Okay, go ahead, Rashawn.
I don't know how to pronounce her name on here, or who this person is. Miss Allie Brown Skin Gal Jameson. I don't know if I'm saying I'm sorry if I screwed that up. They said that they would say we as trans women are grouped with gay men.
Yeah, you do.
They also said, I feel it has a lot to do with upbringing and religious beliefs. Most people are ignorant until educated.
Yeah, but you also have those people who just are not interested
And being
in
educated.
being educated.
Because the whole thing with the Zaya Wade situation, everybody kept talking about how Zaya is gay, how she is gay, but Zaya never mentioned anything about her sexuality. She mentioned everything about her gender identity, and
and
those
that's
are
it.
two different things. And it was driving me crazy that everybody kept talking about her sexuality.
And she's a child.
And she's a child. We're not talking about her sexuality. We're talking about she identifies as a girl. She's a girl. That's
That's
it.
it.
And
That's
you will
it.
expect her as such. But people had a
Right.
hard time doing that. Like I told you the other day, Patrice, it was Zaya's birthday the other day, and some actor named Hill Harper going to leave a comment on her birthday saying "Happy birthday, young man," and people are like, "Why would you do that? You already knew." Just and it's just shit like that. So I do understand that it's not a good thing to put transgender people in the same sandbox as LGBT because being gay is a sexuality. Trans is a gender identity. Those are two different things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when it's put like that, you cannot argue the fact. I do think that once upon a time in our society, they grouped all other together.
Mm-hmm.
And we have now grown and have enough social awareness to make those changes. Everybody, I always hear a lot of my older gay friends talk about, oh, they got too many names to describe everything now. That doesn't make any sense. Pansexual, demisexual, and those are sexual preferences. Why would you not? Gender nonconforming. Gender nonconforming to me is very much like trans individuals, where that's a gender identity. It does not need to be added to sexuality.
And
Go ahead.
I was going to say that conversation is something that I've recently come to grips with, the trans umbrella conversation, because I think as people who identify as trans women, we have to kind of let go of we have to let go of possessing that title, because being trans and being a trans woman are two different things.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because trans is anywhere in between, anywhere transitioning between, genders, whereas being a trans woman is a specific thing. And so you have those people who may identify as gender not conforming or gender queer or gender fluid, and they're underneath the trans umbrella because it is trans. However, being a trans woman is a thing underneath the trans umbrella. Being a trans man
Right.
is a thing underneath the trans umbrella, just like LGBT. That's it. LGBT. If you want to add, pansexual and some of the other
QIAA.
sexual orientations in that, then that's its own classification or its own group of classifications. And
Right.
alternative lifestyles have been put under one umbrella because I think lots of times people find themselves as a community, you find yourself, used to be a lot of trans women were once gay men. Used to be a lot of people who may consider themselves pansexual, may have considered themselves gay or bisexual at one point in time. And so
Because
you
those are the
have
only
these
options
things,
they had.
yeah, you have these things that have sprouted from, whereas now, because you have so many identities and because you have so many orientations that are being labeled, younger people who are aware of these labels can grow into, this is who
Right.
I am, this is what I am, and
Right.
they never have to kind of go through that same process of evolving from one thing to another.
Right.
So, as every other adolescent is forming their sexual identity or gender identity, then they can say for themselves when they're 11, 12, 13, hey, I'm pansexual. Hey, I'm gender fluid. Hey, I'm gender nonconforming. Hey, I'm trans. And you know, it's hard right now for people to accept that young people are saying these things at that age. But the truth of the matter is, we all were saying those things. We just may not have been saying them out loud, or we may not have had the verbiage at the time. We all come into, you know, that sexual explorative age in our pre-adolescence. And you know, some people were exposed earlier, and so you figure these things out at a much earlier age. But sexuality happens very naturally inside of different people all the time. And so I
Right.
think that um, the basis of all of this is trying to have conversation with older people, specifically the ones that have children,
Yes. Yes.
and making sure that they can open their minds to accept the differences that are now more pronounced.
Hmm. I like the way you
I
broke
think
that down about the whole thing of being trans and being a trans woman. I think a lot of times within the gay community, we as I know for me, sometimes I've even slipped up myself and have caught myself where I was dealing with someone that was just trans, and I have dealt with someone that is a trans woman, and I mistakenly like try to convert the same like mindset with both when that's not it. You know, a trans woman, she literally lives her life every day like a woman. I mean, like, there's nothing that you can tell at all to this person that they're not a woman. Dealing with someone who's trans, who's still trying to find their way kind of within their transition and figure out what it is exactly what they want to do, where they're going, it's
That ain't
completely
amen.
different too.
Mm-hmm.
Can she hear me still?
what'd you say, Beverly?
I said that's not their ministry.
Yeah.
Period.
Robert
Oh,
Porter made a
oh,
comment. He said, "Is it wrong to exclude the title of trans when referring to someone? I always just refer to them as male or female and drop the trans part. But I want to be respectful and accepting of the person."
It's very individual.
Asking
There are some
pronouns.
people who will present themselves in a masculine and or feminine way and will prefer the opposite pronoun of how they've presented themselves.
Mm-hmm.
There are definitely people who exist who you would never know are trans unless they tell you, or until you say
yep,
something that they find offensive and they're like, you know, I, I always
right.
laugh when I say that, because I always I think of that clip where the trans woman is in the convenience store and somebody keeps
And
on
say,
calling
man,
her sir, and she says,
sorry.
"It's ma'am."
Very aggressive with it.
Oh, I would love to hear from some of the trans individuals that are watching and giving
Yes.
comment. Please comment
Yes.
in the comments about anything that we're talking about, how you feel about what you're seeing. We did have a comment from Shelly a little earlier, and I kind of think it's a one of those things you take for granted as being, well, yeah. But she said, do you think it has anything to do with being a part of a patriarchal or the patriarchy?
Most definitely, most
Yes.
definitely. I think that there's a huge part of heteronormative society that finds it to be a huge slap in the face that you would throw away your manhood, because it is a blessing to be a man under any constraint, whether you're a black man or whether you're a white man or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's still that patriarchal hierarchy that gives men certain dominance in the culture or in
Mm-hmm.
communities.
True.
I completely agree.
I agree. I
Mm-hmm.
agree.
Jen Fox said, "Do you feel like social norms around these issues are changing quickly or not quickly enough?"
Not quickly enough, baby. Not quickly enough. Listen. We talk about it. We talk a good game. I see stuff posted. People start. They start for a minute. They ooh, let's be all, trans lives matter, and then it gets quiet again. Like then something has to happen detrimental again for everyone to get back on tune with each other. And like, okay, here we go again. Now trans lives matter again. I wish it was a constant.
But
Like
that's
this is
also how I feel about Black Lives Matter too. I felt like something traumatic has to happen and then we bring it up, and then it dies down, and then something traumatic happens, and then it dies back down.
I think that kind of goes with the whole concept of social media causes. Causes that are blown up on social media, they become trendy, stuff starts trending, and then because social media is such an ever evolving monster with just new data every day, those real topics tend to get washed away. And I think that is the real problem with any kind of progressive movement. To orchestrate real change, you have to stay on that shit. Like, it's no, oh, somebody else will do it. No, that's not how this works. You kind of have to be on that shit if you really want to see change. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's so hard for movements like the Black Lives Matter movement to stay relevant. Not that it's not relevant, but it's no longer a trend. It's no longer what's popping and what's hot in the news. I think that's the sad part. You will have so many protests and so many people out there giving everything. These people have been getting fucked up out here.
Like completely.
I mean, flashbangs in the face. I saw some chick, her whole shit was split open. You know what I'm saying?
I think that's a great point. I was having this conversation with someone else earlier, and I actually think I'm all for protest. I'm all for acting out, but I think we need to redirect that energy. Instead of going to the streets, we need to go to city council meetings.
Right.
We need to go to school board meetings. We need to make sure that we are aware of who's on our police forces, who are the sheriffs, who are the deputies, who are the council members, all of those local government things. We need to be a part of those conversations, because if we knew who our sheriffs and deputies were, then maybe we would make sure that they would hire people who are not going to be brutal against
everybody else does not like them.
Can't hear you now.
And it starts from there, because of course now we're paying more closer attention because it's election time. So instead of protesting, we got to get to the ballots right now, because what my mind is saying is that while all this stuff is going on, they're trying to sneak something through Congress that we don't even know about.
Right.
And I've been meaning to post, and I'm a horrible procrastinator, so whatever. But I was like, has anybody checked on Auntie Maxine? Because I ain't heard from her.
No shade.
Right.
My time. I'm trying to reclaim it.
Right.
No shade. But yeah, that's I definitely agree. I feel like a lot of times right now, like, we're not really focused on the main event. Sometimes I feel like it's a lot of sidebars and side things that go on that we don't tend to pay attention to. Even like our mayor went he was live a few minutes ago on the news earlier, and I was listening to the things he was talking about with COVID and how they about to start opening things back up, and even the NBA talking about opening back up and things of that sort. It's just to hear, certain things while all this is going on. It's literally mind-boggling every day to literally have to wake up. And I'm talking about, I stay near Uptown, so I hear the helicopter all night, just circling, going back and around from the rioting and the protesting and everything that's going on. And it's like I'm just like everyone else. I'm all for it. Do your thing, but aside from that, when we go home, are we really focused on the right picture? You know what I mean? Like, do we just want to go out there and act belligerent? Some of us, I'm not saying everybody. Do some people just want to go out and act belligerent? Do some people really just want to really go out there just for the cause? What are you going to do after you go riot or you go protest? What is your next following step? Just by you being present out there with the rest of the people and everything, that's all good. We love that. Thank you for showing support. But what are you going to do after you leave that? What are you going to do following that? Are you going to go vote? I seen somebody say they're not going to go vote. They was like, I'm not voting. I'm like, and
you want to die, or you want to go back to slavery? Because please believe that's what Trump is trying to do.
Yeah, like,
that's what he's doing. So, just to get back a little bit, and I have a question for you guys. Do you feel like the Black community has left the LGBTQ people out of their community completely?
Duh.
I mean, I know that that's a given, but that's the question. And how do we touched on it earlier, but how do we make that not so much a thing?
Addressing our homophobia and addressing the transphobia in the community,
You get
along
attacked,
with the
you get
misogyny.
attacked if you do that.
How would you go about addressing it?
I think queer people have to make sure we have to make a conscious effort to be in spaces where decisions are made. It's not enough to be in public spaces because that's just an argument. We have to be in spaces where they're going to have civil conversations that are going to, civil conversations and make our voices heard so that we can make sure that there are laws in place to protect us. Because until that happens, then, we can do all the yelling and screaming we want to. As soon as we get to the courthouse, everything's going to get thrown out because we don't have any rights to protect us. And so we'll continue to be dismissed because there's nobody that's going to be held accountable for crimes against queer people of color or queer people. Well, no, queer people
in general. So to have those civil conversations with the Black community, where do you go? What do you do? Do you go to the churches? Do you go
Black caucus meetings, NAACP meetings?
All of that.
All of those things. We have to find those places where, those civilized Black folk are having the conversations and making decisions. We have to show up, period, and make noise. We have to speak intelligently, and we have to come in and we have to make our points.
And that's the part.
We have to understand, and we have to make sure that we bring straight allies with us who are also going to speak intelligently on our behalves.
It really upsets me when they put certain Black people on the news, and it's like they make a mockery of us. Like they put someone that's real belligerent and like all kind of, I ain't gonna say ghetto because I don't want nobody to get all mad at me, but ghetto, all in the news and being belligerent and talking and trying to protest and defend the Black community, and that's automatically what people remotely associate us with. They feel like every Black person is the same. You know what I mean? Instead of having someone up there talking with some intelligence and articulating their words correctly and stuff when they're talking to someone, like just making sure we got that type of face out in public would definitely be a big help. So I agree with you, Beverly. I definitely agree with you on that.
I think that's an interesting. I think that it's a good idea. I don't know if it will so much be received that well. NAACP has been around for a long time. They have deep Southern roots and deep church roots. I don't see them being open to a progressive conversation. And I think that's a problem because you're supposed to be here for the advancement of colored people, all colored people. But
if someone in the NAACP was to come out, I think it will take something like that, like someone to actually be on the board that's actually like part of the community.
Martin Luther King was okay with gay people.
It's an idea.
Martin King.
The funny thing about it is there have been so many Black movements. The Harlem Renaissance was started by Black queer folks, and unbeknownst to a lot of people,
I didn't know that.
The civil rights
the
civil rights movement was
Bayard Rustin. He was Martin Luther King's advisor. He was gay.
It was underwritten by an openly gay man, and he knew that Martin Luther King was going to have to be the leader of the movement because he was openly gay. But he was the underwriter of the movement.
Right. And because of that, that's one of the reasons why Martin Luther King supported gay rights, just like the Black Panthers supported gay rights. But for some reason, after that, there became this huge disconnect. Even with Coretta Scott King continues to support gay rights. But there is some kind of disconnect within the Black community that so-called puts these people on such high pedestals that you don't understand that.
No shame. No shade.
But I think it goes back to that whole patriarchal thing. I think it goes back to, what's so oftenly referred to as toxic masculinity. There's this thing of once we acquire a certain position or a certain status, that we have to appear to be this
pillar, men have to appear to be this pillar of unshakable strength and
Mhm.
fortitude. And so in order to do that, you can't embrace anything that's truly compassionate or loving or tender.
You
Or
said it.
any kind of emotion
You
or
said it.
empathy
Mhm.
or anything that is a
And in
normal
the
human attribute that is not considered a macho thing.
Right.
right, and in the words of our father, meanwhile back at the ranch. Okay.
It's like, look.
Hello, somebody.
Hello.
Hey. So let me ask you this: how much of a part do you think the religious sect plays in this problem, and how do we address that?
You know, even when it comes, okay, I'm just gonna tell a quick story. So when it came to my mom, Yaya, her mom wanted to have a funeral here in Charlotte, North Carolina, in the church that she normally goes to. Um, her mom told the pastor that my mom Yaya was trans. Immediately, conversation changed. They weren't allowed to have the funeral there. Um, it was some words that I'm gonna say there was exchange like mean words, but it was some things that was said back and forth about gay people and trans people and the reason why they weren't allowed to have funerals for those type of people in their church. Um, Religion, when it comes to this whole gay thing and trans women thing, like it's I don't get it. I don't get it. And I what I really want to say I'm not gonna say, but I just don't understand how people are hypocrites. And they say come as you are. I don't know.
It's
You heard
called
that.
performative Christianity, sweetheart. They only perform when it's time to turn the Christian on. But when they don't need to have the Jesus on, they turn the Jesus light off and they throw that ass like everybody else. I'm not here for
and
none of that.
and it's so crazy because um well, like, yeah, that in and of itself is another conversation. But I think that the Black community, period, even even the people who don't attend church hold on to that. They'll hold
Yes.
on to the fact that homosexuality is an abomination. Even
Ooh.
if they say, "Oh, I don't believe in organized religion. I don't believe in going to church. That's a whole bunch of crooks. Blah 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 blah." But as soon as you bring up homosexuality, oh no, I ain't with that.
Mm-mm.
Well, that's not what. Okay, never mind.
that's that's not what the sayers get me. Mm-mm.
You just got me.
I just don't understand. But yeah, I definitely think religion definitely plays a big part on that, in a negative way. Um, as far as I'm concerned, I don't even know. I just don't like. I
it's
don't like the
hard
whole.
for me as a uh, it's hard for me to correlate the negative response that the LGBTQ community receives with how deeply most people in that community relate to religion. That is
I
really
think
difficult for me to understand.
I think it's because when you think about what it truly means to be a representative of the way Christ lived, then I think a lot of times people who have experienced, being shunned by their communities, um, really, really have an appreciation for love and understanding. And that is the moral of Christianity, is love and understanding. And so I think that's where that attachment comes from. But just like within any organization, not just religious organizations, you have people who attach themselves to these organizations because they want the fraternity of it. They
Hmm.
want they
The
they they
fellowship.
they yeah. And so they want to belong to these things because they want to be seen as a part of it, not because they really adapt the ideal of this particular of these organizations. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And I think that's just a human construct. We have all kinds of organizations, and at the end of the day, when you break them all down and what they're supposed to be, and how every single member acts in their own time, nobody, I know several Muslims, I know several um 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 Rastafarians, I know several, devout Jews and this, that, and the other thing, who all are down with the get down. But if you're speaking on doctrine, then their doctrines speak against those practices.
Things. Mm-hmm.
So, child. Just like, I mean, but it's no different than, violence against women, or violence against your partner, or immoral or indecent sexual behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Clergymen are known to be huge sexual deviants.
Mm-hmm. There was
I'm
a
a,
Catholic
So,
priest that just got exposed on the grinder.
but I mean, just period. I mean, I
Across the
think,
board.
Across the
yeah, I
board.
think all of us have probably personally had experiences with clergymen who have been indecent.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm gonna read
But
this
then turn
comment.
around and get in the pulpit and talk
I'm gonna read
about.
this comment. You mean to read it?
Go ahead, go ahead.
It's from the brown skin girl. Um, she said, "I feel a lot of our girls feel as though they have no voice and are broken by the heterosexual community. That they feel there is no hope other than behind closed doors. We also have the girls tearing down the girls. So a lot of the girls feel they don't belong due to not being as feminine or having a soft voice. So they just come out because realistically, inclusiveness feels good. When you don't have that, then you won't feel valued or feel you have a voice." Hmm.
Once again, I think that goes back to that whole, feeling of wanting to belong to something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the girls are against the girls, but that's another thing
It
within
comes,
our
That's a
culture.
jealousy thing.
yeah.
Yeah, that's another thing that's within our culture as Black women. Period. We size up a woman every time she walks through the door.
Right.
It's just kind of just a thing that happens, and it's unfortunate, but it's just what happens.
Yeah.
And if you happen to be trans, then that's just another box that they can check off their lists whenever they need to discredit you for anything.
Mm-hmm. Quick to throw that
Yeah.
out.
And we do have a lot of comments. Bryce, you want to do a couple comments?
Mm-hmm. Robert Porter said, anything that is designed to segment and exclude the liberation groups of people or not of anything will truly be religious or biblical.
The whole topic of Muslims against Christians and Christians against Muslims, if it's all supposed to be love and getting to a better place and being better people, then what the fuck?
I feel like anything that is requiring you to suppress who you naturally are, you shouldn't be part of it.
Yeah.
Just let it go.
You're not happy that
You can't change your skin color. You can't let being black go. You know what I mean?
No.
this black on black, I mean, not even the black on black thing, but even with the whole Black Lives Matter movement, even with everything that's going on, like, it's just, I don't know, I guess dealing with the whole fact of just knowing that you are, even being black, just being black, period. I don't care if you're a man, a woman, boy, girl, I don't care. Just being black, that you already, I've heard somebody make comments, and this is where it's coming from, because I felt like this one guy felt like he couldn't get a job because he was black. I heard someone else tell me, oh, they couldn't date this other person, didn't want to date them because they were black. Things of that sort. You get discredited because of your skin color, and it can cause someone to really take your life because you are black and they look at you differently. It's just to wake up every day and have to deal with that. I don't think people really grasp that and really understand that. Like, it's like every day you're a target. You just never know.
And then you double that target, double down that for gay and lesbian women, triple down that for trans individuals, quadruple down that for trans women.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's unacceptable.
Even like the video of the trans girl getting jumped by them like 30 plus cisgender men, in the store. You know, we're talking about it now. We're bringing it up, but it still doesn't, for me, justify the fact of why these black men, that some of them actually, and a girl is, and I mean, people are so smart to the point where they dissected the video and was finding people in the same city to see if they was out protesting, and they were like, "You out protesting saying Black Lives Matter, but you just was in the store beating this black girl, this black trans girl." So don't be a hypocrite. Don't sit and say that you for all lives or all Black Lives Matter when you're not including trans women. And it was all because of the trans girl had hit
A fender bender.
yeah, I was on a fender bender, and it was all because everybody jumped.
And the woman wanted her to give her cash.
Yo, when I seen that video, I swear I got heated to the point I was sitting over here like walking in circles because I was ready to. It just upsets me seeing stuff like that. Like, it's crazy to me. It's crazy.
Yeah, I can't talk about that video. Because if it was anyone in my family, I would be so far under that jail. And I can't. That's very upsetting.
There.
Carlise, would you like to chime in on this topic?
Well,
did you see the video?
I did see the video, and I saw all of the theories behind why what happened, and it's it's just disheartening to see that people would just undervalue someone like that. And I mean, there's a certain weight that you carry as a trans person of color when you walk out the door and you walk into certain spaces. Regardless, there are some girls that have more passing privilege than others. However, ain't no girl 100%. You know what I'm saying? We're 360 degrees of separation from somebody who knows the tea. You know what I'm saying? And you never know who's going to be lurking around the corner. And you could be over there getting your life, and a whole gang of boys could be, at your life, just like living for you. And then it take that one person who knows your tea, say, that's a dude. And before you know it,
shit has gone downstream.
It's a big problem. It's a big problem. You know what I'm saying? And it's of no fault of your own. You were minding your business. And a lot of times the defense mechanism is being dismissive. I'm sure there are plenty of girls who may be watching this, and they know that if you're walking down the street, and unfortunately, if a black dude or some black dudes are trying to holler at you, and they don't know your tea, you have to pay it.
Boom.
You have to pay it, because if you don't, and you decide to entertain the conversation of one of these dudes, and then they get the tea, then it's just like, what's going to happen now? And so you have to pay it, and so, but that can spawn another tag. Stuck up bitch, da 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 da, kind of thing, and so it's just like, it's one of those things that you just have to say, you know what, you have to take the lesser of two evils. Whenever you go into a space and you can't get out, and you have to risk saying or trying to disclose, your gender identity, because you want to be the one to give the news before somebody walks up to him and say, it's those kinds of things that can cause kind of anxiety, but it's also something that you just kind of have to say, this is what I have to be aware of whenever I walk out into the world. And of course, like Sean was saying earlier, you have that same type of anxiety being Black.
Yep.
just for being black.
Every day.
If you are driving through a hick town, if you're driving through a hick town and you see a police car get behind you get on pins and needles
Your
because
heart
this
beat
is like
fast, sweating.
I don't know nothing around these parts. All you know is it look like tumbleweed and cows.
That's it.
Yeah.
Baby, listen, the
Ain't
way
nobody stopping.
And nobody's happy.
You know, and so you feel that same sense of anxiety because you don't know if this person who's going to try to pull you over is undercover KKK.
right.
You know, so it's
Or homophobic or transphobic.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
and or all of the above.
Right.
You know,
Typically
racist.
one.
Right, and so, but I think that I would love for us to take that anxiety and use it to mobilize our voices in a really positive and a civic way. But we got an ADD society, so
Thanks. Go ahead.
Well, Charlize, it's about our time. I do want to thank you for coming on and talking with us today.
That went by so fast.
I would. We will love to have you back again because, this is a conversation that will go on and continue to go on, and I think it's important to have these conversations out in the open so that change can happen and people can become aware that are not aware. I was really surprised how many people, when I put that video up, had not seen it, didn't know anything about it, were completely floored by it. So I think that this is one of those things that, just like Black Lives Matter, we do need to continue to discuss. So thank you for coming on and talking with us today. And we're sure to see you again.
well,
Come
thank
back.
y'all.
Please come
I
back.
do appreciate being included in the conversation.
Oh, love you.
I love you too.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, I did tell just a few things. You guys, I mentioned earlier that there were some places that gave some really good information for trans justice support. There's a group called TGI, Transgender Institute Justice Project. They do legal information, name changes, getting paroled, getting out of jail, justice for trans individuals. So they are a great resource for a great deal of information. I also want to talk about there's a group called the Trans Lifeline, and that's translifeline.org. It's a trans group that is run by trans people. They were started in 2014. They do a little bit of everything. They want to see, they do support and resources needed for trans people in the communities to survive and thrive. They do sponsorships for name changes. So they're also a great resource. Right now in North and South Carolina, we have a transgender people of color survey going on. It's a research study to learn more about the transgender community in North South Carolina, the communities of color. It's a survey that they would like for you to take. It's about 30 minutes long, but you also get paid for that survey, $50. And this will also help to start the conversation and enable people to find out what it is that you need in your communities. What kind of support systems are you looking for? What is going to help you live your best life? They have a Facebook page. It's trans, TRANS, all caps, forming the Carolinas, and that's on Facebook. You can go on there and find that link, or you can contact me at Rain. I'm Patrice, as usual. I am the PrEP case manager and prevention person at Rain, and I help people get onto PrEP, have healthy conversations about sex, living your best life, being happy, getting a job, mentally healthy and stable, all these things that will help you be and live your best life. And I will kick it on over to my coworker. Ooh, messy. Come on, Sean.
Y'all already know. Again, it's your boy Sean. I am the peer outreach specialist here with Rain with Crew. I specialize in harm reduction as it relates to substance abuse or substance use. So again, if you know anyone dealing with addiction, anyone dealing with substance abuse that needs a friend or someone just to talk to and kind of cope with, or kind of just to get over a situation, whatever they got going on, I'm that person to come to. Okay, send me that information, or you can just have them reach out to me at this phone number below. Also, I am out in the community educating and advocating about healthy, safe sex practices, and y'all already know how I'm about to end it. I got condoms and lube for free.
Yes, he does. Come on, Bryce.
Hey, y'all. My name is Bryce Curry. I'm the parenting specialist at Rain. I specialize in getting those who have been out of care for 6 months or longer back and re-engaged in care. Also, if you're newly diagnosed, I get you into care within 2 to 3 weeks, and I case manage you for a year, and I help you navigate your care along with any other crises that you're having that may affect you getting into care. And also, mind your business and let trans people live their life.
Hello. Come on, mind your business. Just mind your business.
It's okay. It's not hard to do if they are not hurting anybody. And this goes for everybody. If you are not hurting anyone else, live your fucking life. You only get one. And it is too short to be fucking with these people who want to judge you.
Hey, baby, listen.
I hope you guys have a great afternoon. If you're going out to protest, stay safe.
Black lives matter.
Black lives
matter. And we will see you guys next Tuesday. Bye.